I'm Jama Pitman. I'm a strategic advisor to Rose Hill. I've been working in biotech for about 25 years. So I think one of the key points that clinicians and patients need to know is that with these vouchers, the objective is to decrease the timeline that it takes FDA to review an application. So that means creating efficiencies within the review process, working with the sponsors to perhaps share parts of the application on a rolling basis or perhaps even in real time. The objective is not to change the evidentiary standards that we need for approval. So all of those still remain in place. It's just how we go ahead and review the applications that's changing slightly. Yeah, well, we've got to wait for the phase 3 data and the companies to file the applications. But once they do that, with at least with the two drugs that were issued the vouchers, we expect that the review should take about 2 months. So both of those companies are expecting to submit their applications, I believe, at the end of this year. And then there's a review timeline, and then the drugs need to be rescheduled. So physicians probably will have access to these drugs probably late 27, 2028. Yeah, again, the goal isn't to change the evidentiary standards. FDA put out draft guidance a few years ago about clinical development of psychedelic agents. And the hope was that if companies followed that guidance, it would hopefully alleviate any of the pitfalls that we had seen previously within the psychedelic development community. So I think we're already ahead of the game in terms of providing FDA the evidence that they need and meeting the standards. But of course, that needs to be reviewed carefully by FDA. And hopefully they can work with the sponsors to figure out ways to streamline the review of the applications and make their review more timely. Yeah, so with the psychedelic approvals, so this class of drugs will likely need a REMS, risk evaluation and mitigation strategy. So that's basically a mechanism that FDA can use to ensure that the drugs are used safely. So the goal would be for the REMS review to be quick because hopefully FDA already has a sense of what they need to see in a REMS and sponsors are aware of that so that they're providing it to FDA as part of their application for approval. Clinicians, I think, generally speaking, there's a misunderstanding in the general public on how we plan to use these drugs for these psychiatric indications. In most cases, these drugs are going to be given once or twice. This is not a everyday lifetime sort of administration of the drugs. They're given in a very controlled environment. Patients get a lot of support while they are receiving the medication. And they also receive a lot of support and have to do a lot of work themselves with their own psychiatrist therapists. So it's really a collaborative process with the clinicians, the patients to get better. Now, the psychedelic that they'll use maybe once or twice, or that's really just a tool to help them, um, you know, rewire their brain in a way that allows them to be able to make meaning out of that work that they're doing. I think a lot of this transpired sort of with this Trump and Rogan and the text message that occurred. And do you want Ibogaine FDA approved? And I think one of the things that came out of that is that the allowance was for Ibogaine to be studied under an investigational new drug application. So Ibogaine is being studied outside the US. Now we're going to be able to study it here just like we would any drug in a clinical trial. So I think when folks hear that, Ibogaine, oh, FDA approved it, they approved the ability to do a clinical trial, not use, widespread use of it.